All right, so for today, what are we going to do? We're going to play together. We're going to show you some things maybe you've seen before, but probably not. My goal in this presentation is to get you aware of all of the opportunity that's sitting right in front of all of us as a financial professional, and of course, ways to actually implement it, right? For many years, we've talked about don't tell me what to do, tell me exactly what to do, and then I'll go do that. And I'll get the results that I get. But there's a couple of things, as always, when I do webinars, is I want to make sure that we're adding twice the value of the time that you put in. So we put in a lot of stuff in here that I hope you take some notes on, probably take screenshots. And of course, the recordings will be available if you registered legitimately for all of us in our community that tend to run out of time and need to come back to this. This has been really interesting. I've been talking a lot about generational wealth transfer, not just this year. I've been talking about it for 10 years. And the reason is because for many years, I've been focusing my own practice on the high-end, high estate, and basically generational transfer. It's where we just saw where the money was, right? Go where the puck is, go where the money is. And for ultra high net worth practices, this was really important to basically work multi-generationally. So we tested and we tried and we experimented and we failed in many ways to engage next generation as well as prior generations, if that's where the wealth was, to try to do estate planning and so forth. As many of you know, kind of the native effect of being an estate planner for many years was that we accumulated assets, and you could see the kind of scale of assets we became as our secondary business is just grabbing wealth management. And so I've tended to focus a lot of my time on being a student of the business, like many of you that I know who are in the audience right now. Which means I've keep focusing on my designations and learning more. And so you'll see that I've invested there. I also, as many of you know, became a fintech founder when this process that we used in our firm basically went viral in 2012 when I showed it on stage. And the 20 top advisors from around the country said, hey, I have the same problem when we use this. So for those of you that don't know about Asset Map, it's clearly gotten a whole bunch of accolade. And thank you so many of you who are using the process and so forth. We hope you're getting the most effective ROI of any tech you're using by basically elevating your own AI. Which effectively, as many of you know, I tend to call the original AI, right? The original AI was advisor intelligence. And how do you apply this in real time? So whether you've been in the business for 25 years like me, or you've been in the business for 4 years or 3 months, whatever it might be, you'll find that the real value that we're all delivering is really this. In some forms, it looks like relationship currency. In some places, it's expertise. In some places, it's confidence. But it's all about us applying our collective intelligence. That means empathy as well to their lives in real time. And how do we do that, especially given the fact that there's so much tech going on? How do we start to differentiate between being just a tech operator or whether we're really adding value as a human, as a partner on this journey for financial success? For those of you that don't know, the things that really kind of inspired us in the early days about Asset Map was how do we figure out how to get on the same page for these clients? And this is really where it started is could we create an inventory of all the financial stuff and all the people and entities that matter and have a way as a financial advisor to really look at it quick, just like a financial x-ray, and then understand how we wanted to frame the conversation or bring up the problems or point out what was wrong with the trusts and maybe the generational before, or how we needed to bring in the tax advisors to get some tax guidance, or maybe we needed to talk about the businesses and what we're doing on the benefits side to help coordinate all those benefits. And so what happened over time, as you can imagine, is that when you put the truth in front of people, you get permission to start conversations and apply that advisor intelligence in real time. And over time, what we wound up doing is the program got more robust. We started adding notes and we started filling up other needs that advisors had. And now we've integrated with all kinds of platforms from CRMs that allow you to just jump into those CRMs. This happens to be, I'm doing a demo here on Wealthbox, where I'm showing you can basically toggle back and forth from the data that you need at the point in time if you need it in the meeting. Or if you want to talk about what's going on at the portfolio level, you could just jump into that real time and say, okay, here's what's going on here. So the key is we made Asset Map really a driving tool for your presentation so that when you're with the client or when you're just thinking about the client on your own, you have the capacity to get to the resource you need really fast and look like you're a rock star because you can just access this stuff on demand without having to fumble through your papers or log into another platform. And you're going to see us continue to invest in this way to find ways to overlay data and insight right into asset maps so that you can frame the right kind of conversations, whether that's performance or, in this case, risk position relative to the accounts we manage. Or maybe you want to look at, let's say, what's going on in Morningstar in this trust account that's really obscure to you. You want to look at the holdings. So can we pull that information? Again, I hope this gives you some vision as to what we've been trying to do. You'll understand where I'm going to take the rest of this program when you understand what we can do and what we've recently rolled out that's going to affect these kinds of good conversations. You can see here, they even have file storage. Many of you don't use, but we have the ability to connect to Drive, to Dropbox, and of course, to Box.com. And I think what we'll to round this out, a lot of the ways that advisors have been missing opportunities is that we've really framed up conversations using, let's say, signals. That's our algorithmic feedback on risk management to tell you whether these families can handle certain events like loss of life or disability, and then basically go do a projection funding in 30 seconds. So if you're not using our target maps, we're investing more and more because we're finding other financial advisors just don't have the time and the capacity to go spend 3-4 hours in their traditional planning tool just to get a specific answer that's going to change tomorrow. So I encourage you, if you're not already doing this, use this as a way to help communicate to the client how funded they are for their goals. What do they need to do? Let's increase their return expectation by 1%. How does that change the math? Call this the poor person's Monte Carlo, basically illustrating the problem. And I hope that you guys understand this. One of the things that we need to do a better job is let's communicate the problem and then show that we have some relevant and contextual answers that can help solve these problems. Like, how are we going to fund these later years? What are we going to do differently in order to make sure? So as opposed to coming in there with the typical balance sheets and policy summaries and totally overwhelming everybody, let's remember that we have to be empathetic to their experience and help them understand their bigger picture by focusing on the inventory. Okay, so I'm going to use this concept throughout because I think it's going to help frame this. Now, if you don't know this already, we've spent a significant amount of energy on data collection and how do you get to this place, right? So these are really our superpowers, is getting to a conversation faster, whether it's through our discovery profiler, which will take 15 minutes. You could scale it out to a whole bunch of different prospects, or you're using our templates of people like you do this, or you're now using our API integrations with all of these fantastic tools. I really encourage you to kind of play with this. All right, so that's the commercial on what we're doing. Hopefully that brings everybody up to speed on what we're doing. Let's talk a little bit about the great wealth transfer. Now, I know you've probably heard about this, and if you've been in the business for any length of time, you know that the boomers have a significant amount of money, and we've been waiting for this thing to happen. And the irony behind it is that the boomers are living longer than I think any other generation. They've got incredible health, and they've got a good amount of wealth, as you're about to see. And so the argument is that maybe this transfer, they're going to spend all their money on a long-term care facility at this point, and the kids are never going to see anything. But either way, in money transfers, we know that those are opportunities for advisors, especially if you are in the asset management game or estate planning game, which this is naturally going to create. And of course, you've probably heard these statistics that 72 trillion, maybe up to 83 trillion on Cerule's most recent a post of this is going to move to next generations. And we think this is really interesting, but we have not seen anyone say, well, here's specifically what you need to do in order to go grab some of that wealth or position yourself to protect it from the loss. The interesting thing about this from New York Times, and you might have seen my post a couple of days ago where I talked about this, and I actually put this image up there on my LinkedIn post. For the most part, the silent generation has been, we'll say, ignored in this conversation, but they have about $20 trillion, and that's likely to go to X generation, their grandkids. Tends to be generally a very we'll call it humble community. They don't express what's going on financially for themselves. And so they actually, I tend to worry the most about their wealth transfer because they didn't really document, they didn't have financial advisors. They tended to be more private. And so it's on a spreadsheet or a little piece of paper that here's our accounts. It's in a drawer somewhere, very little organization. And of course, the baby boomer money here, that's this some $80 trillion here is expected to go to Gen X and millennials. But that basically means that Gen X is going to be what? They're going to have all the money. They could have $100 trillion, Gen X, and they still have 40, 50 more years to live. So that's a really interesting opportunity for us to pay attention to where the market's going. The next market is really going to be serve Gen X, okay? Not just boomers, if that's where you're facing or that's what you're looking at. Of course, millennials are going to be really relevant. The question is, with many are many of us going to be in business by the time they really have a significant amount of wealth? I think over the next 20 years, that's something to really think about. So I drew out a couple things, and I did this at this scale because this is part of a bigger challenge that we are all facing. So I want to illustrate what I'm seeing in the business, and hopefully you can relate to this. The interesting thing about, I think, our practice is that typically a professional, right? So that professional advisor, that's the person on the left. That's pro, okay? That might be you if you're a financial advisor. In this case, I'll pretend it's me as a financial advisor recovering. Typically, in my practice, we would have a client and there would be some partner or a spouse. This is gender non-specific, right? There's somebody usually takes the kind of role of what I call the household CFO, whether by choice or just by default. Someone is the point person for almost all of our communication. They tend to be generally the higher wage earner, or at least the most interested, or maybe the most organized. We can all relate to this. Someone is taking point in the family. They may not want that job, by the way. They just have taken it because the other one is like out to lunch. All right. And I hope we all know what I'm talking about. Very rarely do we have both parties coming as equals in the situation. And that's a challenge. And here's why it's a challenge, because typically the spouse who's under engaged is generally not empowered, right? They're not really part of the conversation. They kind of show up to meetings. They don't show up. They're optionals. They trust a lot. And we all know that the clients who are by default the household CFO may not be the best person to be the CFO for this family, which is why we exist. The challenge that I kind of see here is that if we're typically providing portfolio management, that's what that pie chart represents, or this wonderful financial plan that's glowing in stars and covered in gilded gold that we generated at the beginning of our relationship, or maybe we're doing some kind of online portaling with performance reporting or something like this. These tend to be the core memorable things, value propositions that the client has experienced, but the spouse is not really engaged in, so doesn't know how to value. And it basically creates this bubble, this relationship bubble that I think becomes exclusive. So I think you'll hopefully all understand what I'm talking about is we tend to build a lot of relationship currency with a core client. The question is, what happens when that client passes on or is no longer available or is, God forbid, in a hospital room and nobody knows what they planned, right? They didn't always communicate with the other spouse. And so the challenge that we're tending to see a lot of, and this is something for you to pay attention to, is to ask yourself, do you have these situations where the partner in the family, or maybe it's the child of your client, don't really have a relationship or have ongoing communication directly with you? So this is an important aspect for you to really address and answer. Do I really have the stickiness of the relationship with both parties that are under my management? And do they know how to value or express that value to their kids that are going to come in and ask questions? Hey, what are they doing for you, mom and dad? Like, why are we really sticking with them and paying them 1% or whatever the fee is? That's going to be really important for us to pay attention to. And that's why we've used historically the asset map as a way to provide a treasure map, an inventory, if you will, that I just showed you a couple minutes ago, to make sure that all spouses and partners had a copy intentionally in their email or via client portal so that they can relate to us. So that my brand, my logo as a firm is in front of that client. When they need to pull it, they have access and they have an inventory to know where their stuff is buried. Really important. What we are seeing also is that the digital kids, right? The kids grew up in the digital era, whether that's millennial or X generation, they are more empowered than ever and they are getting educated and they might even be trusted. So the question becomes, how do I make sure that I'm paying attention to them as a potential beneficiary as well as disruptor to my relationship? Because they can, in fact, actually start engaging. And we're starting to see this now. Boomer families are starting to bring in, as they get to their 80s, mid 80s, they're bringing their adult children, typically X-Gen, into their conversations. They are more open than the silent generation. Boomers grew up in the hippie era. They are more free and open. I'm making big generalizations here, but they tend to have a trusted child. Okay. Usually their oldest child, well, sometimes it's their youngest child. You know who it is, who is really diligent, likely to be their executor or executrix, likely to maybe help take care of them when they get older, right? The one who's really involved still in their lives, if they're so, blessed to have this. And they're starting to become part of the conversation, but you have no relationship with them. And that's a problem. And I think that's also being seen because parents in a sandwich generation situation, right, are not, parents of our clients are generally disorganized, as I mentioned before. They just don't have their stuff. They might even be a financial dependent. And so that creates this second, we'll call it bubble of trust that you may or may not be in part of. And the key for us is to try to figure out, how do we get involved in this? Because this is a really important way. And I'm going to show you ways to engage this. We also might have people on our staff which have started to build relationships with other clients. I know there are a good number of, we'll call them the underengaged spouses, that will reach right out to our staff. I have no idea that it's happening. It's happening in the background. They want to do something administratively, move money, get a distribution, invest, insure, do whatever they need, change some ownership, change names, etc., service stuff. So there's relationship going on in the background, but it's not with us. And the question is it gonna be sticky if we have any disruption? We do know right now that 70% of the children of our clients will leave their parents' advisor. Okay. But the same thing is true for your clients who have parents that are living. If parents have an advisor, it's likely, if you build a good enough relationship with them, that you could also acquire the assets of their parents because you'll already be embedded. And I think this is really important to remember. To everybody else, we always joke about it always happens to the other person. To everybody else, you are the other person, right? So there's the other guy it's going to happen to. That means you have the risk of losing these assets if we don't build relationship generationally. Hopefully, I've made my point there. The other thing that we have to be really cognizant of is that you've got all these other professional relationships. You might actually fall into one of these categories yourself as an attendee of this webinar. The key here is that when you look at it, the attorneys, they want to do the documents. They really want to administer the estate. So they're going to be an important aspect of this, especially for our older generations. They want to monetize the 2% fee on the estate that's going to transfer through probate. So that's how they monetize it. The CPAs these days all have, at least the larger ones, all have personal financial management teams. That means they're in wealth management too. So they're pressuring, the spouse or your clients to come work with them. We all know the insurance world has gotten really deep into wealth management. They'll do protection and growth advice, right? They'll do a one-stop shop for pretty much everything. And even banks are doing this and expanding into their trust and wealth management teams. So you're dealing with a lot of pressure from other parties who have your clients' ears consistently. And they could also wind up basically being competitors versus collaborators. I'm going to show you a way actually to collaborate with them. The last thing is that there's clearly institutions that are directly marketing to our clients, and they're telling our clients via social media that they're the best, right? We should move your money, get away from those people. Or the robo advisors asking us, "What do you mean you're paying how much in fees? You should just work with us. We're real cheap." And of course, there's other influencers, we call them finfluencers, out there that have got the ear of the next generation telling them these advisors are just taking advantage of you. And so we have to deal with all of this pressure. The question is, how do we look at these kind of inner circles in light of this generational wealth transfer and AI movement, which are going to change everything that we know? I think, how do we kind of double down? And this is why I want to share with you opportunities. So the key is going back to the beginning. What am I going to show you how to do? Number one is, how do we make sure that we're creating an engagement experience for relationship currency with both parties? Number two, how do we engage next generation in a way that doesn't feel like a sales process where we're forcing them to do a financial plan? That's not going to happen. I can't go call Nana and say, "We're doing a full financial plan," or "Get your kids off of TikTok. We're going to do a financial plan." They're not into that. They're not going to do it. And then how do we create a barrier around this community of professionals where we can make them collaborators. That's really what I'm going to show you how to do. Okay, so here's the 6 strategies that I'm going to show you. Hopefully 1 or 2 of these things will really resonate with you, or you're doing it, or you'll modify it based upon what I'm sharing with you, or even better, you'll innovate it and you'll share it back with us what worked in the field. I basically call them engaging the underengaged. So you could take a snapshot of this if you want to remember this. I'm going to come back to it in the end. Number 2, how do we reveal financial interdependency? I love that word. Number 3, how do we have the right legal documents, and where are they? Do they exist? Can we do a beneficiary audit to make sure we have an intentional legacy? How do we share our treasure map with the people that really need it? And of course, how do we become the quarterback and lead the team without being asked? So these are really what we're going to talk about. Hopefully here's how they work. All right. Very good. So we have 40 minutes left. I want to make sure I have nothing in the chat that says, all right, cool. And if there is anything that you want to tell me in the chat, you can chat it there. I'm not going to read it because I'm talking to you. All right. But I'll get back to it by the end. Hopefully we'll have time for questions. All right. Engaging the underengaged. One of the things that I think is super important is that we need to recognize that at all times when we're meeting with our clients, we have to continuously sell empathetically our value proposition to them. And one of the things that we've said is making sure that we are on the same page and proving that we listened. And so the key for this is that in every single meeting, if you're not doing this, find a way to do it. If you're not doing it with Asset Map, you got to figure out some way to do it, is to make sure that you're on the same page by starting every meeting with inventory. Here's the people and here's the instruments we have in play. Do we agree that this represents the current state? If the clients haven't told us everything, how do we give good advice, right? It's like going to the doctors and say, I didn't think you needed to know about my pain in my liver because I came here to talk about my hand. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. So we need to basically create transparency and say, here's the current state. Is it accurate? And when we do this, we allow that classic situation of a client who's generally, I'm going to lose it. If you go into Excel or you go into the burn down chart on retirement, I'm totally lost. But if you can give them an inventory and you can actually physically give it to them, one of the things I recommend is that in every meeting in person, is that we actually have printed asset maps for those people who want to get there with their color markers and do a Chuck E. Cheese map, and they want to draw all over it because they like doing that, or they show it also on the screen. So everybody's looking at the same thing. Nobody's on page 23 looking ahead to try to find the answer of how you want me to change my funds or what the performance is of Apple was this month. I'm just saying, let's talk about the context first. And so we really encourage everybody to take the first 10 minutes of every annual review meeting and throw this up on the screen and say, this is my current understanding. It gives us permission to ask questions, and it gives them permission to ask questions and get educated. What is this IRA again? How does that work? What are those stock options? What is this thing over here called a 529? What does that mean? How does it work? It gives you the opportunity to apply your advisor intelligence. Sounds scrappy, right? Sounds silly. That is the value of having a financial professional, is feeling like you're not intimidated, okay? Because you want them to ask you the tough questions that need to be vulnerable. So do this. It's real easy. I just showed you how to do it. Just do it in the meeting and have pens in the beginning. I even still have pens, good old pens on my desk so that clients can just draw all over the map and make it their own. Okay, number 1. Number 2, how do you reveal financial interdependency? Now, this hopefully is not a new concept to you, but what I realized over time is that the why, the reason why anybody does financial planning is usually because it's not just about them anymore. Okay? That's very true in estate planning. It's not about me anymore. It's about how do I empower the next generation? How do I promote values and legacy and pay less taxes, perhaps? It's being thoughtful and intentional about other people. And we need to know that as financial professionals. But how do we reveal that the family is more than just you, your partner, and your 2 kids? Right? The registrants on all these accounts. Okay. That's really not the whole story. And one of the things that we were really focusing on this year was, how do we help frame this conversation, right? The most important people, all the entities, the people you've got dependencies on. And so that's why we created this relationship map. I really encourage you to play with this. This is literally live, not sped up. I created this just before this presentation, and I did it to show you how this works. So in a meeting, I get to talk about Tim and Christine and their kid. They have a special needs son together. Maureen is actually from Tim's prior marriage. They also have Christine's mom, who's also somewhat of a dependent. She's in her mid 70s. And you can see here that what I want to do is I want to ask better questions, right? What are the relationships between grandma? Is she going to be a dependent on us? Do I need to think about how we're going to move that money? And Christine, are you going to be the executrix? And gosh, I know we have this trust out here. How does that flow later? Is that going to benefit Beatrice during her life and then go to Christine in its remainder? Or is there other siblings involved? I need to put them on the map because we know we can't, this money can't go to Joseph. He's a special needs. It's going to ruin his benefits. So there's lots of questions I need to ask. You know, maybe we need to meet with grandma and do this kind of mapping process with her to make sure that we know the inventory. I know you said that the Autism Foundation was really important. Do I need to embed them in our bigger plan so I know what you value and what you care about? Remember, I talked about why. Now, I'm making this up literally for this fake household. Could you do this for yourself, or could you do this with a client live? Literally drag and drop, all connected to Asset Map. It's pre-built for you. You just drag them on there. You draw the lines between it. You hit the delete key if you want to get rid of it. Can we do that and start having other conversations like, well, your business partner, John, is involved in this business, and I know you want to kind of move that to Maureen long term. Is that something that we need to plan for now? Should I bring John into a meeting with us? So what I'm trying to do here by framing this conversation is can we expand the typical conversations of, is your asset allocation right? Is your insurance, efficient? And start talking about the people and ideas that I can bring to the table through myself, my team, or your other business professionals by using this. So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm basically just deleting it and then I'm saving it. And I saved it as as kind of the kind of business map, right? So I just go over here and then I change the name. You can see I messed it up a couple of times, whatever. That's what happens in real life, right? I call it my succession and exit plan. I want to force a conversation about what we're going to do here and how I can add value to this situation. So hopefully you kind of see the benefit of doing this and then just keep coming back to it every time, just back and forth and back and forth. This gives me permission to engage the other parties and show them I'm being intentional about their relationship with the family. Okay. So some really cool stuff here because it's fully embedded in Asset Map. Here, I'm just jumping to Holistiplan because it's just using core Asset Map data so I can have this conversation natively. So really cool stuff. This third thing that I really think we've done generally a poor job in industry of doing is talking about legal documents. And this kept coming up for all of our advisors saying, I really need to talk about whether the documents exist. And you see this huge foray of these tools right now for initiating the estate planning documents from wills and trusts, power of attorneys, guardians, et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the things we wanted to say is, wow, as financial advisors, we may not be able to write the docs. We might not be able to get them to go to a lawyer or even initiate this new cool app that we get to try to just do it. But we should know if these exist and whether we need to be driving this conversation. And so what we just added to Asset Map is this. So here's how you would use this. We basically put it front and center. We call it the legal pill, right? Because you got to take it. It indicates whether we have any knowledge of legal instruments that have been created. All we want to know is, what is it? Who's involved? Where is it? It's in the desk drawer, Adam. Who are the empowered members? Don't give me the details because I know you don't know either, okay? And I'm not reading all the documents. I'm not trying to pretend like I'm a lawyer all of a sudden. I just need to know that you know that these things are in a state of good or not good, that we know where to find them when we need them. And you can bring this up live looking at the Asset Map. In fact, it's actually tied directly to who you're viewing an Asset Map. So if you click on Christine and her business partner, you'll see only those legal instruments, those two legal instruments that are relevant come up. Christine's will and a buy-sell plan that's not funded. By the way, should we address that? We should probably talk about that. I'm trying to bring up and tee up conversations that are not addressed. You'll also see I actually put a stencil in here as well that indicated that he basically doesn't have any buy-sell funding as well. But this is really interesting. So think about how you can use that to force a conversation in areas that you might not get compensated, but shows to both the CFO and the non-CFO, maybe even the kids if they're in the meeting, that you're asking good questions, that you're thoughtful beyond merely the advice you deliver and get paid for. And I think that's going to be really important. The fourth thing here is what I call an intentional legacy. And we've been really missing this also as a community because there's been very little way to actually test if anybody has actually gone in, post the legal docs to figure out if they're right. But what about the beneficiaries? Beneficiaries are contractually driven. They supersede all your legal documents. If there's a beneficiary or a joint owner designation on that, we all know from an estate plan, whether it's your estate or your parents' estate, or God forbid, your kids, or maybe your business partner. You want to find out you're going to be in business with, someone you don't want to be if we lose them. We need to actually say there is an intentional legacy in somebody's check. So we rolled out this concept in a beneficiary audit. We should all be doing this for ourselves and our clients. I know it's going to take you a year to pull it off, but you're going to find so much opportunity here. What you're looking at is our beneficiary designation section. What it shows to us is how many individual instruments are unassigned. We do not know who the beneficiary is, not just for assets, but for unearned income sources that have a residual value or a liability or an insurance or any other type of thing that might have value to the estate when you're not here. Do we know where it's going? Is the will designated as the beneficiary, or is another person, et cetera? So we're looking here at Christine and Tim. Look at this. Tim has $32,000 going to Christine in his income. $802,000. I don't know if you can see this fast. $802,000. I don't know where it's going. Does that mean it's going to the estate? Or does that mean it's going to his sister or his ex-wife? I don't know. Nobody checked. So use this as a way to put this in front of the client and sell the problem here. All right. This is highly valuable because you're going to uncover the mess that's not been fixed. And if it's great, you've been the one who confirmed this. What's cool about this now is we can look at this for both primary and contingents. Okay, so we can challenge the status quo and say, okay, yeah, I want this, but we can also look at it visually for those of us that have ADD and can't focus on this. So where's the money going based upon category? $802,000 in assets between these 7 things or 6 things. I only know 147 is going to Christine. The insurance, not clear. It looks like Christine's getting about 650,000 of insurance. So that's pretty good. Liabilities, I don't have them assigned. I don't know who's taking them over. That's the point, is to just challenge the status quo. Where is this stuff going? And literally do this live with a client. You'll look like a rock star. Nobody's ever seen this before. And I've never seen another platform really do this well. So I encourage you to use this as a way to say, hey, we're going to do something new today. We're going to do a beneficiary audit. I need to make sure this is clean because God forbid this event is going to happen. I need to make sure that it's going where you want. And so we can do this for generation 1, 2, and 3. Where's grandma's money going? If we don't know, then perhaps we should do this process for her and use that as a way to tee up into generation 0 if you're generation 1. Okay. Hopefully you're gonna think about this. You can obviously follow on these things. We can teach you how to do this, but we're setting the seeds. All right, number 5, treasure map. As you probably figured out already, one of the things that we think is super important is creating some level of transparency, but we don't want to overwhelm, right? These products, these fintechs, they've gotten really, really powerful to the point where you probably could underuse them. So the question is, where do you create some transparency without creating a total mess experience for your clients? And for now, our opinion is we need to give access to the map through a client portal. And the impetus for that is really the following. You need to understand that in the generational wealth transfer, or great wealth transfer, as we've been calling it, younger generations are expecting digital first. That piece of paper with the asset map, okay, it might have utility, but beyond that, I kind of want it digitally because I don't know where to store a piece of paper anymore. I don't know file cabinets. And it's, that's pretty kind of sensitive information. I don't think I want that floating around in my drawer for my, cleaning crew or my kid to find an asset map. Actually, that's pretty funny because my kid found a copy of my asset map, started asking me questions. I had to stop being so nosy, right? So I think today, we have to think about this. Next generation is going to expect not this gilded, beautiful bound book that we used to create and we all grew up on, but rather a digital first, concise, not 18,000 pages, 1 page. And so that's why you can now give individuals read-only access to our client portal. A lot of advisors are missing the opportunity of this. What happens when your client or underengaged spouse needs to get this information. They need to look at it. They're going to some kind of discussion with their lawyer, or they're going to their CPA, and you're not available and you're busy and you're off golfing or you're just busy. They need access to this stuff, and it doesn't have to be up to date. We are not reliant upon an aggregation engine that says, oh, everything has to be perfectly up to date. I need to know basically you got about 100 grand in the bank. That's good enough. Okay. That hasn't changed much. So what you see me doing here is I'm enabling certain access for certain individuals in the household. Anybody who's in the household can be given access with the client's permission. Okay. So generally, if they're my client, I assume they want their own permission. I enable a client portal. It sends them a secure link. They have to log in, MFA, all that other fun stuff, and they can do this. And it gives them access to their asset map. What is coming, just so you know, is the opportunity for those of us who want to create a suggested mode. So that'll be coming in first quarter. For those clients that are like, I really want to suggest a change. Okay, fine. You can suggest a change, but I'm going to approve it because you're not messing up my financial plan. The key here is that we need to start enabling this. And here I'm going to bring it all together right now. Okay. I called this You're Welcome. I did this for you without you asking. You're welcome. Okay. That's my kind of sarcasm. Here's the last engagement concept that I think we really need to start thinking about. Can we take all the stuff I just showed you and actually build that wall around the household that proves that we should be actually the quarterback? And I kind of take this, take charge, even though nobody asked. So what you're going to see me do here is I'm going to add actually the other business professionals like the CPA to the overall household, but not included in obviously the household. They don't live together, right? So John Dawkins is the CPA, but he doesn't live in this household, right? He's not dependent, but he has a relationship. You can add now professionals, other professionals, trustees, executors, whatever you want, to the household and give them certain rights to basically be present on the asset map, whether it's as a trustee, a related party. You can see I'm giving John also access to the client portal as a read-only viewer so that he can actually participate in the conversation as opposed to be left out in the blue. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go to the relationship map and I'm going to actually include the other CPA as part of the conversation. So I'll reach out to John and I'll say, listen, John, it's important that we manage the family for this, together. Here's, I have you play a pivotal role in helping with the business, as well as some of the accounting and the bookkeeping, as well as the annual filing taxes. I'm going to access you, and I'm going to enable Thomas, who's going to be the executor of this estate. I'm going to enable the client portal for him as well. And so now we can all collaborate on this household. Am I building stickiness as a result? Am I relevant as the quarterback or the driver of this big Uber? I think so. And what's going to wind up happening is that beyond my relationship with just Ben, who's typically who I talk to all the time, Ben Franklin, right? That's the 59-year-old here. I now have a relationship with 4 or 5 people on this household, and I've been intentional of showing how we all work together and created a presentation in seconds. Credible, savable, relatable, participatory. That is the key. It's got to get to a place where they are participating in their own story as opposed to being talked to for a fee. And that's a really key for all of you, is to how can I change that experience for the client so that we are really addressing these. So let's kind of go back to it of what I said you can do. So here's the quick reminder, right? What did we do first? Number one, we need to figure out a way to engage the underengaged. I use Asset Map and I intentionally communicate with the other party of the household to make sure they're getting what they need and they have an audience and a framework to use of, let's describe something that we're on the same page. Number two, I need to understand my client's real interdependency with other people. Again, not just you and your partner if you have one, but whether it's a modern family, right? There's other let's say exes and non legit marriages, whatever it might be, okay? And kids from different generations. I need to know all of it because the decisions we're making financially are going to affect everybody. I need to know who matters. I need to be able to go into business partners, people who I have deals with and interests in their success and survival. I need to talk about parents. map the whole family, okay? And ask for permission to talk to them and bring them in strategically to conversations to really serve them. Super important. If you're not doing it, I will tell you, other advisors are doing this like crazy now since we rolled this out a month ago. Number three, can we add the legal documents to the asset map? Don't worry if they're not super accurate. You want to know that they exist or they don't. You want to know, just like an IRA, you want to know if they have an IRA or they don't have an IRA. You have insurance or you don't. You have your wills or you don't. You did your guardians or you didn't. You have a power of attorney or it doesn't exist, right? So these are questions you and I need to ask, and we have a right to ask it because we are on their team as a fiduciary in most cases. So we have to ask this question, but you got to document it that it exists. And if it warrants what? Follow up, what are you going to do about it? You're going to ask. You're going to ask, you know what? You need to send it to my trusted attorney, or we have an attorney on staff, or use this app and get it done, or let's figure out a plan and be an advocate here. Number four, have you done a beneficiary audit for any of your clients, even for those assets you do not manage? You must do this, okay? This is the biggest failure. I will tell you, an advisor recently shared the story with me that they had a client who had money with them for 10 years. It was a husband and wife. The wife had an IRA. She established her husband as the primary beneficiary. The husband died 7 years ago. Nobody went back and did a beneficiary audit. So guess what happened when the wife passed on? Her IRA went where? Not to her 8 children. It went to her estate. All the provisions of any kind of extended stretch or tenure is gone. They're not happy. They're not going to stay with that advisor. Okay. Really important. Do this now. There's guaranteed, even in your own asset map personally, a mess here that needs to be cleaned up. It might be small, it might be big. Please check it out. Do that then for your clients as something that a service. Number five, can we give people a copy of their treasure map without them having to beg you for it? Yes, you could do this in advance. You could do this. You could also do this for other members in the family as a way to engage them. I've just now shared your map with your executor, who will now have access to your stuff. Not account level, not account details, not holdings, but will have access to know that there's an account at Wells Fargo for $100,000 in the cash that existed at the time we created this map. They know where to dig. Okay, super important. It's creating a lot of loyalty and I think relationship currency that doesn't exist with next generation. And then number six, you got to choose to lead the team. If you don't manage the entire professional superstructure, you're not a family office, you don't have an accountant and an attorney on staff, well, this is your opportunity to create referral and recommendations by bringing them to the table and showing that you're going to be conscious of their needs and role in the family, and you're going to embrace them and you're going to bring them into the table, your conversation. You're still driving, you're still the quarterback, whatever analogy you want to use. But this is a great way to build relationships and show them what you can do to also earn reputational currency with other professionals, maybe even referrals. I think it's a really smart move. You got to choose either whether you're going to be a leader or you're going to be a follower in this way. We've given you a tool to basically just do something nobody has seen. I hope you take advantage of it. It's money. You're going to make money. You're going to actually create relationship currency. And if you don't do it, then, well, there you go. Don't say, I'll say I told you so, because other advisors are going to do this if you don't with your clients. Okay. So that's my fear mongering. Take action now. The last thing I'll leave you with before we go to any Q&A is the following. Please ask yourself, how are you going to do it? If not this, what? If not now, when? How are you going to engage multiple generations to help apply your advisor intelligence in real time? That's what they're paying for. I hope you do this. And what I want to leave you with is it is holiday season. That means it's the season of giving. And I hopefully have given to you more than 2 times the value of your time and ideas that you can put into practice that will help grow your practice, serve your clients. But I will point out something that a lot of people are missing. And that is, if you're not investing in training and adoption, you're not going to get the benefit of any of this fintech that you're using. Whether it's our tool, CRM tool, financial planning, whatever it is, you need to invest in it. And where we're not seeing it is investing in our staff's ability to use these tools for our best benefit. For those of you that have figured out that you must invest in the next generation to help them grow and learn so they can be long-term succession as well as real, human capital for you to elevate your practice. If we're not investing in them, I don't know how they're going to grow, right? They just grow naturally from just being around you, especially in a remote, predominant environment. So I'm telling you, you need to invest in. So one of the things that we created is this certification program for AssetMap on 3 levels: platform, process, and expert. I just recorded this. It's some of my best content ever. It's clearly something I think is worth a lot of money because it's a multiplier. Advisors, literally, one advisor reached out and said, I just did your expert program. I brought in, I think, $30 million in assets just using your language. I'm like, okay, you got paid back. Fantastic. So what we've agreed to do is that if anyone chooses to take on a delegate license, which is a $50 a month license for your staff, we will include platform level 1 and 2, process certification and platform certification. I can't say it all. Level 1 and 2 as a bundle. We'll invest in your practice to make sure you get the multiplier. So it's a fantastic way if you take action before 2025. We will honor this. And of course, if you go to this QR code and you follow up, if you're an existing user, thank you. We totally appreciate you and respect your business. If we can support you, you know how to engage us. That QR code is not spam. I did check it myself. And it'll take you to several resources that you can get to if you want to take advantage of that stuff, or if you want to go get a demo if you're not a user. With that, I'm going to take us to Q&A. And so let's see if we can find some questions. All right. I see one question from James. Okay, does the client look at AssetMap as a simple stagnant picture? Interesting. I think what we tend to see is that the client looks at it as a visual inventory, if you remember it, of the people and relationships that are part of the story and all their financial instruments. They can click all over it and change the view to just, let's say, their kids or just the trust. So they have, even though I only showed the static view of, let's say, the 2-party system, right? Usually a classic husband-wife. They can kind of navigate it and show a lot of things. They could even show themselves balance sheets. They could print out a policy summary if they want to go talk to their insurance provider. So there's a lot of functionality that I think the clients can see. I tend to focus, James, on the asset map because it is the one levelizing confirmation that we're on the same page. And that simplicity becomes very powerful when they're used to seeing complexity. They get involved in it. Unlike other financial presentations, they start inspecting it like a Rubik's Cube. They start taking it apart. They start asking questions. Why is this here? How does this work? Why? And if we can explain that, because we have some intelligence and competence, we look like rock stars. And that's the real benefit, honestly, of using it live with a client. If you have any other questions, throw it in the chat. I don't have the Q&A turned on unless my team has the ability to. Oh, there is Q&A. See, look at that. Okay. Got it. Which version? Okay, there you go. Can I customize the words in color? Not exactly sure what that means, James, but if someone else knows, because that's coming just to me. That's not coming to everybody. All right, cool. I'll read this in a second. Can you use code? Well, you can use emojis. How about that? You can use any emojis, any currency that any system can handle, or PDF. So you can kind of call out some things. You can't change the color of the boxes right now. There's a real intentionality behind that because we're trying to create a universal system so anyone can look at it who knows AssetMap and just instantly interpret it. So there's some reason there. I'm going to see here. So from Brian, which version of software has the beneficiary map? All of them now. That's going to be universal. All right, so that's all of the versions, both professional and elite have beneficiary map. If I'm at a large firm, does using AssetMap have to be compliance approved? Good question. Most compliance officers would say the answer is yes, we do know a lot of advisors that are asking for forgiveness, not permission. But the real question is who are you with, right? We have approval with pretty much all of the IBDs, and if you have one that is not on the approval list, reach out to our team. You can reach out to hello@assetmap.com. We'll keep that in confidence, and we'll make an attempt to either answer a question or get it done. Right. So it's always a matter of navigating the compliance bureaucracy. But LPL, Cetera, I believe Osaic is done, if not approved unofficially. There's a whole bunch of others that many of you are part of. Okay, Mark, I haven't read this. I'm going to read it out loud. I looked at the beneficiary audit of my asset map and the joint assets. I have owned 50/50, and I have a beneficiary as 50%. Yeah, so we're going to change that, Mark, so that now you can actually choose. It's going to be rolled out in the next couple weeks. It's going to basically, you can choose surviving owner, or you can establish, obviously, for non-joint instruments, true 50/50 or partial interests, going to a myriad of different options. We realized that was a challenge when we started doing more of this. So that'll be addressed, Mark. Thanks for bringing it up. All right. How are advisors marketing this? Anyone writing ads on Facebook, start your financial planning journey with us. There are a good number of advisors who are forward thinking on this. Probably the most successful is Jason Hamilton. He built a 50,000 member Facebook group where he offers Asset Map as the discovery link as a free review. He's bringing in almost 200 households a month. It's overwhelmed his business. There's a surprising amount of interest in, I mean, it's not surprising. It's a matter of what kind of marketer are you, of utilization here that advisors are just missing. That QR code that we provide every advisor to just start an asset map discovery process, which takes about 15 minutes for the customer, do it on their phone. No aggregation, no passwords. You can even push them right into the client portal if you want for them to see the results. Although I tend not to do that. I want to basically control who I choose to work with. Yes, you could scale this out. We even have client-facing videos that you can customize with your brand that you could use in marketing for social, as well as your own website. So yes, I think there's some huge opportunities to market hey, let's create a visualization of your current state that most of us are just ignoring because we're busy enough. But I think it's a huge opportunity. Don't miss it. Talk to our customer success team, and that we have a whole marketing kit for now press releases, for posters, for emails that you could send to prospects and clients that you can just plug and play. So really great adoption of that recently. Barbara says, is there an ability to create a budget cash flow within Asset Map? Also, is there a way to connect with their accounts that download balances? It really depends on, I'll go second first. Accounts that we don't manage, when I say we, I mean you. We tend to actually promote that you connect to your source of truth. So if it's in your CRM or your portfolio tool, we likely have an integration with them. We are about to roll out expanded custodial services. So if you're using multiple custodians, you can port them into Asset Map by syncing. There is bulk upload capacity through our customer success team with Excel. There's a lot of other options here. We have not instituted the cash flow budget. The reason is because a lot of advisors are just not doing it. Every time we play with it, it's the least utilized tool. So we've chosen to prioritize other things. That being said, in our custom questionnaires option in Elite, you can send a similar to their phone interview that asks them what are they spending on what. And that'll give you back a full PDF of understanding where their spending is. So that we're starting to see some more adoption of that, Barb. And I think we're probably not going to do full aggregation unless you have some other custodial service that is aggregating it for you and will send it to us. We just find that getting precision on an asset map is not worth the squeeze. We want to stay round, high level numbers. And that's why we also don't have a lot of PII and account numbers in there on purpose, right? So it's a security and also overkill statement. All right, that's my statement. Hope that serves you. This helps to get know our clients, KYC, suitability. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. I agree with you. This is a really great proof. James wants to add photos of the individual spouses. Yes, that is highly, highly requested. Netflix can do it. Why can't we? The challenge has always been who's choosing the photos. Once the client sees the photo you chose, they're all upset. And then we're talking about their, the lighting in the room and their hair color versus their financial stuff. So it tends to be a strange slippery slope. We're going to enable the clients to upload their own photos in client portal so that they can take that ownership. I think that's going to be important. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I really appreciate um, everybody's participation today. Hopefully you heard something that's going to resonate with you. You're going to put into action. And of course, that QR code will get you to all the resources. I also mentioned you could get to hello at Asset Map for general questions, as well as scheduling a demo. Hopefully take advantage also of the offer that we're providing out there, $800 worth of value. We put a lot of time and effort into that, and we hope you take advantage of it, even if you pay us for it. We're happy for you to pay us for it, but we're also happy to make sure that you guys get the benefit of being part of our community, especially in the holiday season. With that being said, I wish you and your families a wonderful holiday, no matter what you wind up doing. And of course, make sure that you're being intentional in 2025. It's an opportunity to have a fantastic year, especially with so much going on our planet. Let's make sure that we focus on what matters. And that's obviously our families and our relationships, and of course, our practices. So with that, I send you off with good tidings and appreciate your time and energy.